You buy a direct drive wheelbase, you copy someone's force feedback settings, you jump in the sim, and it feels terrible. Too heavy, too numb, no detail, so you change damping, add friction, lower the gain, raise the gain, and after hours of testing, you realize something. You actually don't know what force feedback should feel like to begin with. My name is Arnold, I've been sim racing for years, created hundreds of car setups in different simulators, and in this video I'll explain my Moza R9 settings and some in-game settings and an overall broader picture how you should or how you could approach force feedback. Let's get into it. If you clicked on this video to get the perfect force feedback settings for a Moza R9, for instance, then I'm gonna have to disappoint you. But I want to create this video for beginners that don't really know what they should feel like and how you can build up your force feedback profile so you actually start knowing what you're doing and what you should expect. When you're new to sim racing, or new to using a new wheelbase, or maybe you simply lack experience in a simulation, you're basically a blank slate. I suggest first getting used to your wheelbase to build reference feelings. But what are reference feelings? For instance, you hit the brakes, you start turning the wheel before a corner, and you might feel your wheel giving resistance due load transfer on the front wheels. Overdo this and the wheel might give you a slight hint that the car is oversteering. Now you're trying to change the car direction, you hit the throttle with a certain amount of steer lock and you feel the wheels getting lighter because load transfers to the rear. And this reduction in resistance gives you the feeling of understeer. With high downforce cars, under high speeds, the steering gets heavier the faster you go. Curbs, banking in corners, bumps, elevation changes, all force the wheel in certain directions. So, a beautiful example of force feedback that is like working properly is when I go out of the pit, for instance, and I let my car on purposely hit that wall of this pit lane. Look at the wheel. Force feedback is forcing the wheel to go back in another direction because my car is actually being pushed the other direction. Alright? The higher wheelbase torque you have, the more forceful this is gonna happen. What Le Mans Ultimate does is when I hit the brakes and I add load to my front tires, then the feedback of the wheel gets heavier. Then when I touch the curb, you can see it's moving over here as well. Here you can feel the minor vibrations. And what I think Le Mans Ultimate does like in a certain decent way, I'm not saying this is best, but this corner combo, I like feel this banking in these corners and over here as well. Like whenever the car is like lifting up, like I feel like forces are like being reduced in the wheel, and overall that feels very responsive. If I do this in Assetto Corsa Evo, for instance, the same happens, but in a slightly different way. Now what Evo really does nicely is this weight that I feel in this fast corner. The next one as well, like this weight, it's something magical on how I like Evo this way. Also this corner I really feel that banking. There's like this resistance in the wheel. But here's something funny. I'm using the same wheelbase settings across every other sim. I don't mess around with my base settings. Now the most important settings for your force feedback is basically the rotation. So if I have the car and I start using the wheel, if I put it physically on 90 degrees, it should be 90 degrees in the sim as well. That's the only thing. And I'm using this example in Evo, but every sim I believe has this. So if you're looking at the force feedback above the RPM meter, you see it's turning red all the time. Now it's like actually clipping. It's way too heavy. You see it going red all the time. So when you go back to settings and you go to the force feedback gain, I actually have it on 45 in Assetto Corsa Evo. And what I said earlier, you want to find this steering lock slider, and this one you can change. For instance, in my Moza Pit House it's 900, and in Assetto Corsa Evo it's 900. So now I actually get the 90 degrees of my physical wheel and the simulation wheel angle. And most sims will have this steering lock setting on top because it's the most important one. Now, I still get great feedback. The force have been greatly reduced, but it's like on a decent strength still, and you can see that it's not going red all the time now on top. This is what they mean with avoiding clipping. Have the lock one, like the proper lock, steer lock compared to the real life, and have a gain setting in game that will give you a result of not clipping the wheelbase. Why is this important? Well, if you clip it, you lose the feedback. Let's say you clip it to 100%, then if new feedback is being transferred to the wheelbase, you're not feeling it because the wheelbase cannot produce more force. If you also have a Moza wheelbase, you can use these settings. I have these settings as well in the description in a newsletter. So if you subscribe to my newsletter, you can get these files together with all the settings of Assetto Corsa Evo and Le Mans Ultimate and Assetto Corsa Competizione settings. And mind you, these settings aren't revolutionary. They're a collection of like different things. I have to be honest here, I actually don't know where I got most of these settings from. I just work with this and I like how things feel in different simulations. Something that I will point out is the natural inertia. If I drop this too low, then the wheel starts going left and right, left and right, left and right when I don't touch it. So that's why the inertia is on 200. And if I would now decide, which is very unlikely, that I wanted to do iRacing, I would use these base settings. And if I would do race room, which is more likely, still not really likely, I would use the same base settings. But why? Why am I not building these settings all the time? Well, first of all, I'm doing lots of car setup building and I'm switching cars up a lot of times. And if I keep sticking to my same wheelbase and in-game force feedback settings, I start to build more reference and more depth and more understanding on what my settings tell me on these cars. Currently, when I'm building setups, which is something I do a lot, is that I can feel in Le Mans Ultimate weight on my wheel, like hinting towards me that I am on an aggressive setup. And when I change an anti-roll bar on the front, for instance, I stiffen it up, I feel different results in my force feedback. And if I would change my force feedback settings all the time, I need to relearn these references. So what force feedback expectations should you have? And why would people say stuff feels different? Or more detail, less detail, or whatever? So I made this simple spider chart to give you an idea on how force feedback feels across different simulations. Not to say that one sim is better than the other, but to simply give you an expectation of type of feedback each simulation gives. So you jump in a new sim and you understand that different feeling doesn't mean something is wrong. ACC, right? And by the way, this is a highly subjective chart, but on ACC, my first feedback interpretation on high speed detail, when I'm driving fast, I got a certain amount of detail of like load transfer on high speed. On low speed, I can really feel that I'm driving slowly. I feel weight on my wheel and I have a decent amount of load transfer. But I have a little bit a reduced feeling of the vibrations. It feels numb. As for low and high speed differences, and when I hit the brakes, I do feel a depth in the force feedback. Center detail is low. This example is that the feeling that I get in when my wheelbase is on the 0 degrees and I'm on the straight, then I don't really, it's like a deafening low feedback kind of an experience. So that's a little bit how ACC is for me. If I go to Le Mans Ultimate, I have a great center detail. What does this mean? Well, if I'm in a hypercar and I'm changing direction, it's actually getting super heavy as soon as I start steering, and I'm really getting a great center detail here. Also, the vibrations is, I would say, sometimes borderline, although in this version 1.3 I think it's decent and well. There's also a depth between these different states, but on the low speed and on the low transfer, especially the banking corners that I have in Assetto Corsa Evo, yeah, it's just something is missing. Something is lacking. I can't really explain it. If I used Assetto Corsa Evo, again, when that center detail is better than ACC, but I feel also there's more vibrations in Assetto Corsa Evo, but the low speed detail and low transfer feeling that I get in AC Evo is actually better. So I don't know, please leave a comment behind it. This is basically something I came up with to give you a little bit of an idea on how you can like interpret certain force feedback. So what you take from this video then? Well, I would say this. If you have a certain wheelbase of a certain brand or whatever, try to build some experience with one preset, test out a few, stick to certain settings, because I think it's important just to accept that some simulations bring the feedback in a certain way, and you can still like do some tweaks. But let's say the example that I showed you, that I hit the wall and the force feedback is gonna interpret that a certain way, you're not gonna change that upside down or invert it or whatever. I think it's, yeah, again, I think the simulations know better than us, but yeah, that's just me. Please let me know in the comments what you think of this video. Also, I need to point out that I'm currently not using the force feedback app from Le Mans Ultimate, for the simple reason that I'm doing lots of car setup building for my customers, and I think they might also not use that app. And then I get like a conflicting feeling on what my force feedback tells me and the setup work. By the way, if you got the setup pack from my store, please, please, please keep checking the update log. It's in the description. And I want to celebrate my webshop 1 year this month. And in the description, you'll find a discount code for all of my car setups. And if you want to build your own car setups, GT3s, or hypercars, check these 2 videos. They give you a build order in how to build your own car setups in Le Mans Ultimate. But I also have them for ACC, and I will also build them for Evo as well. Pick one. These are good.